Let's talk about why it is that the historical accuracy is indeed important when it comes to films. Before we clap back to Cleopatra, which by the way was a video that I made a couple of weeks ago and got a copyright claim on, which of course I'm kind of redoing now, but more along the lines of for historical purposes and why it is that historical accuracy is so important in films, I want to kind of answer this little comment that I got. Now, like guys, I don't give away people who comment on the channel, even if they're not subscribed or anything. I don't do that for security purposes. I don't want somebody ragging on this individual. I don't want that to happen, okay? I don't run that type of show. I don't run that type of ship. But he asked me, they said, look, I keep hearing somebody using the term woke a lot. Well, there are many definitions towards woke. There's the corporate definition, which means that obviously it's the corporate term for the product that they're selling. They're thinking about, I don't know, the whole LGBTQ push, putting the colors, the pride colors on everything. Or there's also tokenism. There's also wokeness in film when you're doing massive amounts of race swapping, taking historical figures and changing their color or changing their race because, we need to do that there to bring in people in the audience because we have an agenda, when in reality, obviously, the individual that you're portraying was never the race that you're claiming that they are. Like in the case of this here.
My grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
That right there is where we are at in America. Yes, that is exactly where we are at in the United States of America. This old lady who was told by a parent or a grandparent that Cleopatra was black, don't believe anything they tell you in school, even though they got books with a lot more evidence and a lot more facts in it than what grandma does. And by the way, I loved my grandmothers, but then again, at the same time, there are some things that they did tell me that would later on not turn out to be true. But this is where we're at in the United States. We have to believe that a certain character was a certain color, even though that individual was not that color. Now, guys, I basically just brushed on this in my last video, so let's go ahead and get real. Cleopatra was, and I can already hear somebody saying, well, what about the other portrayals? Don't worry, I will answer those questions for you in this video. Cleopatra was of the Ptolemaic dynasty. It is possible that she may have had darker skin, but she definitely was not black. There are some people saying that maybe we should, maybe there's a link between her and the sub-Saharan people that were in sub-Saharan Africa, the ones who actually were in Egypt some 300 or 400 years prior, but that's the problem. It was 300 or 400 years prior. Basically, what happened was that Egypt was conquered by Alexander the Great. Ptolemy was one of one of Alexander the Great's generals. By the way, Alexander the Great, he was Macedonian, a city in Greece, an area of Greece. So was Ptolemy. So more than likely, if anything, Cleopatra, who, by the way, there are several busts of her face, and not just several busts, but a lot of evidentiary studies, a lot of DNA studies that have kind of gone back and looked at her line, and they have determined that this lady was not black. Now, as far as Cleopatra as a leader is concerned, that is not what this video is about. There have been several interpretations of Cleopatra where they've said that she was a smart, bright, ruthless, cunning, and of course there are also other interpretations that say that she was not a person of extreme high moral character. We're not going to talk about that in this video, but I will leave links to all the descriptions that you may be able to find on her. However, we do need to answer this next thing because an Egyptian lawyer has decided to file a lawsuit against Netflix and Jada Pinkett Smith over this very issue. And the person who is filing this lawsuit went on the other night with Piers Morgan and had a little bit of a debate. I'm going to play roughly about 2.5 to 3 minutes of it. But I want you guys to kind of understand something really quick. This is not a play. This is not a movie. This is a docudrama, a lot like what, say, like The Last SARS was on Netflix. They've been doing a lot of these recently. By the way, The Last SARS I thought was pretty good. But the thing about it is this right here. It's a docudrama, meaning that for the most part, it's a documentary, meaning that it's not really a movie. Basically what it is that they try to film it like a movie setting, but it has a lot of interruptions, people giving commentary, all that type of stuff there to kind of provide a different. And there's even one more thing from the whole trailer that really bugged me. But let me go ahead and show you guys this here, and then we'll come back to the other side.
Yeah, I think that this is ridiculous. I think that she is in full range to play Cleopatra. I think people should remember that there was controversy when the late, great Elizabeth Taylor played Cleopatra, and people thought that it was inaccurate for a white woman like her to play the character. History has said that there is some racial ambiguity around Cleopatra's identity. She's definitely not white. And I think to even assume that Egyptians do not carry some level of African ancestry that can have a darker skin complexion is also historically inaccurate. So I think she's more of the ideal of what Cleopatra would look like more than Elizabeth Taylor would be. And you didn't see as much backlash for Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra compared to that.
That's a fair point. So let me go to you, Bess. I mean, that is a fair point. Liz Taylor was the biggest movie star in the world at the time she played Cleopatra. She was not Egyptian. What's the difference?
Well, first of all, this was Hollywood before it was informed. This is where 1961, when Cleopatra by Elizabeth Taylor, we're not crazy about Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra either. That was also inaccurate. I don't know where do you get the idea that we're happy that she played the role. As a matter of fact, 1961 Cleopatra movie was banned in Egypt and many Arab countries because of Elizabeth Taylor's stance towards the state of Israel because they supported them. So I don't know where does he get this information. Second of all, this is the same Hollywood that in 1956 they cast John Wayne as Genghis Khan. So this is a time where Hollywood didn't know any better. Now, the problem for me, it's not about color. It's not about white and black. This is a very reductive way to talk about things. This is the way that Americans talk about it. I'm very sorry. Like, I come from Egypt. Egypt has a very diverse color palette. People can look like me or they can look deeper skin tone like Anwar Sadat, who comes from a Nubian origin. It's not about black and white. It's about the continuous culture appropriation and falsification of history that has been done by what the so-called Afrocentrist movement. The Afrocentric movement started the last century as a way, in a good intention, to teach African American about their rich history of West Africa, the great empire of Benin, of Ghana, of Songhali, the great empire of Mali. But the thing is, that's why you find people like Kevin Hart, who subscribes to these theories, who claim that his ancestors built the pyramids. I'm sorry, your ancestors had their own wonderful civilization in West Africa. They are culture appropriating my culture, calling the people of Egypt of today, despite their skin tone, that they call us as invaders, they call us as intruders, and they are being erased from our own history.
Okay,
this is something that Hollywood has done over the years.
I understand, but let me throw this back at you. This point that we've had so many cases now where people talk about appropriation with actors, be it their sexuality, be it their gender on occasion, be it whatever it may be. And ultimately, I always come back to one point, which is, shouldn't actors do what their job description is? Act. I mean, shouldn't any actor be able to play any part, actually? And once you start making exceptions for that rule, where do you stop?
Is that question for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is not a work of fiction. This is a documentary. This is a documentary. There's a huge difference. This is not The Little Mermaid, which is like a fictional character where anybody can play anything. Cleopatra came from a Macedonian Greek origin. And the thing is, it's not about like the skin color. We don't care about if they're black or white. It's about how Hollywood is so culturally sensitive, and they're so sensitive about all kinds of minorities. But when it comes to my people, we seem to be erased. A couple of years ago, they announced that Gal Gadot, an ex-Israeli soldier who condones her government actions and atrocities against Palestinian children, she was going to play Cleopatra. For me, this is even a bigger insult. And Gal Gadot is not black. It's not about black and white. It's about this idea of Hollywood always stealing the culture of my own people. I don't care what Charlton Heston tells you in the Ten Commandments or Steven Spielberg tells you in The Prince of Egypt. But I am sorry, Jewish slaves did not build the Great Pyramid. This has been debunked many times by Jews.
First of all, you kind of lose credibility talking about the guy with the book in the background that said the case for cancel culture. Number two, with Piers Morgan, you have to kind of talk over him because Piers has got this habit of just not letting you talk. Me personally, I've never cared for Piers, not just because of the fact that he's so anti-gun in a lot of ways. Yeah, it makes me think maybe he's really anti-gun because not so much he's an idiot, but maybe more along the lines of the fact that we kind of whooped the British in the American Revolution. Maybe he's still holding a grudge about that. But like the gentleman said, it's a docudrama. Okay, now going back to whole cultural appropriation and all that stuff there, let me go ahead and say this. Back in the 1950s and 60s, Hollywood was not exactly willing to give those big roles to people who would have fit that race. At the time, John Wayne was kind of like a very big deal, like a very big star, not just westerns, but he was playing in all kinds of movies. So him playing as Genghis Khan, which by the way would have upset a lot of people, especially in Asia, that was kind of to be expected. When it came to Cleopatra, the film Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor, let me go ahead and say this really quick. In that movie, he's not lying. Elizabeth Taylor was, in fact, the biggest star at that time, the biggest female, the biggest actress in Hollywood at that time, and many people kind of perceived her to be probably the most beautiful. Well, what is it? One of the things that they keep on saying about Cleopatra was that she was a very beautiful and very bright and cunning and all that stuff there. Well, Elizabeth Taylor was kind of known to be that kind of actress. So it does make a lot of sense that Hollywood would, in fact, cast her for that role. However, if you hear the people who want to cancel and the people who are, and look, we'll put it this way here. Hollywood is much, much more informed now. They go out of their way to completely ignore the actual history itself. They know better, but for whatever reason, because it's Jada Pinkett Smith, yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys are kind of picking up on what I'm saying. These people are doing this because they just want to do it and they don't really care about history itself. Also, one more thing, too, because in the trailer, there's another small section in there that is said that I really thought was kind of weird. And maybe my assessment of Cleopatra was a little bit more bare bones. Part of the reason why I'm leaving this video here in the description box. But here's the deal. She says Rome needs Egypt. Rome did not need Egypt at that time. Rome wanted Egypt. Rome was all-powerful. Rome basically was in control of pretty much all of Europe. They really didn't need Egypt. I'm pretty sure that they wanted it. There's a difference between wanting and needing, and many people have kind of questioned how it was that Cleopatra got, how she was able to get a hold of Julius Caesar. A lot of people have made a lot of films, a lot of stories on how that happened. They sort of seem to line up with the fact that, yeah, she kind of sort of like put out to kind of get ahead, almost like heels up. So I'm not so entirely sure that she got their own merits, is what I'm saying. So also to go on top of this one, he also said that Gal Gadot, who is Israeli, playing as Cleopatra, yeah, that would probably not have gone over very well either. So it's not like he's just hitting one race. He's hitting multiple people, which tells me he's probably pretty fair when it comes to his assessment. Now, like I said, back in the old days, you could kind of get away with this. You could kind of do this, and it would be a little bit more understandable. But nowadays, especially with all this wokeness and all this other crap going on, which is really weird to me, because you would think that the people who claim to be woke would be up in arms about the race swap of Cleopatra. Like I remember at one point in time they raised hell over the actor who did the voice of Apu from The Simpsons not really being a Hindu or Indian. So where the hell are you at on this case here? I mean, Cleopatra, like I said before, of the Ptolemaic dynasty, more than likely her skin was mostly white, meaning that there may have been a higher amount of melanin, but she probably would have been closer to what that gentleman there, especially the Egyptian gentleman, looked, though she probably would have been a little bit lighter in skin. And based upon all the models and all the DNA and all the evidence that we have collected from those time frames, especially from the line of Alexander the Great and Ptolemy, because they were in fact Macedonian, it seems to me that Cleopatra more than likely would have, let's just say she wouldn't have been exactly black. Then again, we are pretending that she is black because of
My grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
Here's the final point that I'm going to make about this topic. You see, the thing you have to understand about historical topics is that, and I understand that some people are going to say, you can't always get it right. Well, you need to be at the bare minimum at least 90% right for anybody, so that way people can actually learn. This is the difference between a movie and a docudrama. As I said before on multiple occasions, this is a docuseries. Docudrama meaning that it's in a vein of being a documentary, meaning that facts need to be given, as in like factual information, actual history. When you go back in time and you start erasing history and you start replacing pieces of history with something that suits your personality or something, you're walking an extremely fine line. As a matter of fact, that's what the communists used to do. I can already hear somebody saying, "Oh, you're just scared of communism." No. I want things done correctly because it's history that we're talking about. And yeah, communists were bad, and yeah, they used to do this crap right here, which it feels to me like that's what they're trying to do now. And the American version of the communist, the progressive, is not the same as the Soviet. Definitely not as tough. I mean, do I need to remind you over and over and over again that you're not the same as those people there? As a matter of fact, they would laugh in your face seeing what you do versus what they do. Fact of the matter is that if you're going to do films, especially historical films, given the technology that we have, all the knowledge that we have, you need to be doing this correctly and not trying to be woke. And I don't just mean that in a corporate term. I mean woke as in absolutely freaking stupid, because the vast majority of the wokes are exactly what I've always been saying. Very infected. Think about what, like The Last of Us, just infected personnel. Brain rot, brain disease, mentally ill, all that stuff there. That's pretty much what the wokes are. So, yes, it is extremely important that you actually get things right when you're doing a historical video. Now, guys, let me go ahead and end the video on this note right here. We're going to be doing more videos like this, definitely much more, much longer, much more detailed, especially when it comes to countering the woke, because obviously they love to use the cinema to get their agenda across. But I need to go ahead and say this one last thing. I know it's completely anecdotal, but I want to say this. A lot of people are saying that they don't want history taught in schools. Well, let me go ahead and tell you something. History's been getting taught in schools for a long time, and I don't think it's really leaving a whole lot out, especially depending on the child's mind, because normally as you get older, your brain gets the ability to process more information. Like, for example, I was given the bare bones of what happened in the Civil War when I was like in the 3rd to 5th grade, and then when I got to 6th grade, I got a little bit more information. Then I got to high school, and I got a little bit more information. And, of course, I found out like in 2015, 2016 that there were actual slave owners that were black. That's correct. William Henry Ellison and many, many more. Makes you almost wonder if the whole 1619 project and the whole push for all this woke history stuff, rewriting it, is as if to say it's they're doing it for a reason, because they don't want the full side of history to come out, meaning that they are stunting the very, very thing that they accuse us of, meaning that we're already getting taught history from a much how do I say a much more unbiased point of view. But yet they obviously want it much more biased in their favor when you find out and you actually look into history that it's not as, how do I say, it's not as biased for them as you might would think. But then again, though, we'll leave it at that. Guys, John Claymore, if you like the content, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.